Welcome back, my dear travelers. Deep within the misty mountains lies the greatest kingdom ever carved by Dwarven hands, Khazad, known later as Moria. This magnificent city was a realm of splendor and shadow, where mithril veins sparkled like starlight and stone halls echoed with songs of old. Before we continue, I want you, dear listener, to comment down below where you're from and what time it currently is. In this video, we'll step into 9 cozy tales from Khazad, moments that capture the warmth, resilience, and spirit of the dwarves. From a quiet evening by the forges to the discovery of mithril and the crafting of legendary treasures, these stories invite you to experience the heart of this ancient realm. So, gather close to the fire and let us journey into the deep halls of Khazad, where, even in shadow, the light of Dwarven kinship shines brightly. The chill of evening had settled over the misty mountains, its sharp air weaving through the trees and brushing against the stone faces of the cliffs. Snow dusted the slopes, its pale glow caught beneath the first glimmers of stars. Near the heart of the valley, the Mirror lay still and quiet, its dark waters as smooth as polished glass. Durin, the Deathless, father of the Longbeards, stood at the lake's edge, wrapped in a thick cloak that bore the emblem of his kin. Though his face bore the weight of centuries, his keen eyes reflected the light of the stars above, steady and bright. The day's work in the deep halls of Khazad had ended. The sounds of hammer and chisel replaced by the faint whispers of the wind over the water. Beside him knelt a young stonemason, their hands resting lightly on the ground as they gazed into the Mirror. They had sought Durin's wisdom after a day of toil that had left them frustrated and uncertain. The mountain had not yielded its secrets easily, and they feared their craft would never match the greatness of those who had come before. The Mirror reflected the stars perfectly, their brilliance unbroken by ripples or movement. The young dwarf watched the light dance across the water and felt a quiet stillness settle over them, as though the lake itself offered comfort. Durin, standing tall against the mountain's shadow, spoke at last, his deep voice carrying the weight of ages. This lake has stood since before the sun first rose, yet it does not seek to rival the stars it reflects. It does not yearn to be something greater than it is. It honors what is above and carries it faithfully, without faltering. The stonemason looked up at their king, brow furrowed in thought. Durin did not turn, his gaze fixed on the lake. We dwarves are of the stone, shaped by Aule's hands. When we carve, we do not make the stone into something it is not. We honor what it already is. Every blow of the chisel, every cut and line, must be a reflection, not an imposition. The words hung in the cold air, as steady as the mountains around them. The stonemason looked back into the Mirror, their thoughts quieted. They could see now what Durin meant, not just in the star's reflection, but in the stone of the mountain itself. It was not merely a raw material to be shaped. It was a living record of the world's history, a thing of beauty in its own right. Durin moved then, kneeling beside them. He placed a hand on the frost-kissed ground and gestured toward the water. When I first gazed into this lake, I saw myself crowned with 7 stars. It was no boast, no illusion of grandeur. It was a promise, a reminder that what we build here, in these mountains, will endure as the stars endure. Not because we strive to outshine others, but because we honor the legacy we've been given. The young stonemason felt a warmth spread through them, not of fire, but of understanding. The frustration they had carried from the day's work began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. They saw now that their craft was not about achieving greatness for its own sake, but about contributing to something larger, something timeless. As the stars brightened above and the lake's surface grew darker with the deepening night, Durin rose, his gaze still on the mirror mere. "Go now," he said gently, "and return to the stone with patience. Let your work reflect what is already there, and it will be greater than you know." The stonemason stood, bowing low before their king. "Thank you, my lord." Durin inclined his head, watching as they walked back toward the halls of Khazad, their steps lighter than before. Alone once more, he remained by the lake's edge, his reflection crowned with stars. The mountains stood sentinel around him, their silent strength a reminder that the greatest legacies are carved not in haste, but in enduring care. The halls of Khazad stirred with quiet industry as the dwarves returned to their workshops and forges. The faint hum of hammers striking anvils began to fill the air, echoing softly through the stone passages like a heartbeat in the mountain's depths. Among the countless chambers dedicated to craft, one forge nestled near the eastern halls glowed with particular warmth. Here, an apprentice stood before their first forge, their heart a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The glow of the hearth bathed the stone walls in hues of gold and amber, the fire flickering like a living thing eager to assist. Tools of fine craftsmanship were laid neatly on the workbench nearby. Hammers, tongs, and files, each designed for precision and balance. This was no ordinary forge, for it was built into the foundation of Khazad itself, where the heat of the mountain seemed to pulse through the very stone. The master smith overseeing the apprentice moved with practiced grace, their movements deliberate yet unhurried. A seasoned craftsman, their every step seemed in tune with the forge's rhythm. They had spent decades, centuries, even within these halls, shaping metal into objects of strength and beauty. Their hands, weathered and strong, bore the marks of countless works completed, each scar a testament to the trials and triumphs of their craft. The apprentice's task was simple, yet profoundly significant: to forge their first blade. The raw ingot of steel sat on the anvil, dull and unformed, its potential hidden within its unyielding surface. The apprentice hesitated briefly, then reached for the hammer, the weight of the tool both grounding and encouraging. The fire roared as the ingot was placed into its embrace, the flames licking hungrily at the metal. The apprentice watched as the steel began to glow, its surface softening under the intense heat. When the moment was right, they withdrew it with careful tongs and laid it upon the anvil. The first strike of the hammer rang out, clear and sharp, resonating through the chamber and beyond. Rhythm followed, steady and purposeful, as the apprentice worked to shape the blade. Each strike required focus, each movement a balance between strength and finesse. Sparks leaped from the steel with every blow, cascading like miniature stars that quickly faded into the air. The forge's warmth enveloped the room, but it was not the oppressive heat of discomfort. It was a cocoon of energy, a reminder of the mountain's power and the dwarves' mastery over it. As the blade began to take shape, imperfections became apparent. The edges were uneven, the curvature imperfect. The apprentice paused, frustration creeping into their thoughts. Yet the master smith remained calm, silently adjusting the fire's intensity and ensuring the tools were within easy reach. The lesson was clear. Patience was as vital as skill. Metal, like stone, did not yield to haste. The apprentice returned to the task, the rhythm of the hammer strikes slowly aligning with the pulse of the forge. The steel, once unyielding, began to respond, its edges straightening, its surface smoothing under the apprentice's care. Gradually, the blade emerged from its formless state, its lines clean and true. When the work was done, the blade was plunged into a bath of oil. The hiss and plume of steam, a final exhalation of the process. The apprentice held it up to the light of the forge, the steel gleaming with the promise of durability and strength. It was not yet adorned or sharpened, but it was theirs, a creation born of their hands and the mountain's fire. The master smith stepped back into the shadows, letting the apprentice take in the moment. Within the warm glow of the forge, surrounded by the echoes of hammer and song, the young craftsmen stood taller, their first blade a testament to what could be achieved with patience, guidance, and the enduring spirit of the dwarves. The mountain, steady and eternal, bore witness to yet another small triumph, a new thread woven into the great tapestry of Khazad Doom's legacy. Outside, the stars shone brightly above the peaks, while within, the light of the forge burned on, a reflection of the dwarves' unyielding flame. The fires of the forge still burned brightly in the eastern halls, casting their glow far into the quiet reaches of Khazad Doom. Deeper within the mountain, past where the rhythms of hammer and anvil echoed, lay the great mines, the beating heart of the dwarves' labor and legacy. Here, the stone whispered secrets older than memory, and the dwarves, skilled in their craft, listened with patient reverence. Far below the great halls of Khazad, a pair of miners worked by the soft light of lanterns, their breath forming faint clouds in the cool air. The tunnels stretched endlessly before them, their walls lined with veins of quartz and streaks of iron. Each strike of the pick rang out clearly, the sound reverberating through the stone like a distant song. To the dwarves, this was not merely labor, it was communion with the earth, a sacred exchange between stone and hand. The elder miner, a seasoned hand whose years were etched in the lines of his face, led the way. His movements were steady and deliberate, his eyes scanning the walls for signs of promise. The younger miner followed closely, their tools clean and sharp, their eagerness tempered by respect for the task. Though new to the craft, the apprentice had learned quickly to recognize the subtle signs in the rock. A slight shimmer, an unusual texture, a faint shift in color. For hours, they worked side by side, their efforts unhurried. The elder miner occasionally paused, running calloused fingers over the stone, feeling for something unseen. The mountain, they believed, would yield its treasures in its own time, and no force of will could hurry its secrets. Then, in the quiet of the deep, something changed. The elder's pick struck the wall, and a faint glimmer caught the edge of the lantern's light. At first, it seemed no different from the glitter of quartz or mica, common in the veins of the mountain. But as the younger miner leaned closer, the light revealed a pale silver glow, subtle yet unmistakable. It was unlike any ore they had encountered, its surface gleaming with a brilliance that seemed to breathe with its own inner light. The elder miner stepped back, their breath catching in quiet awe. Mithril, true silver, the rarest and most precious of all metals, known for its unmatched beauty and strength. The legends of Khazad spoke of Mithril as a gift of Aule himself, a treasure hidden deep within the earth, waiting for the hands of the dwarves to uncover it. Carefully, reverently, the elder began to extract the vein. Each stroke of the pick was precise and measured, ensuring that the precious metal was not damaged. The younger miner watched intently, their heart racing with excitement and pride. To witness the uncovering of Mithril was a moment of profound significance, a memory that would be carried for a lifetime. The lantern's light danced across the exposed vein, its silver surface shimmering like starlight caught in stone. The elder paused to wipe their brow, the faintest smile breaking through their usual stoic demeanor. The discovery was not only a testament to their skill, but a reminder of the bond between the dwarves and the mountain. As the miners worked, the quiet hum of the tunnels seemed to deepen, the stone itself resonating with the significance of the moment. The weight of Khazad Dûm's history pressed around them, not as a burden, but as a comforting presence. This mithril vein, small though it might be, was a promise of the mountain's enduring generosity, a gift to its people. When the shift ended and the miners began their ascent to the upper halls, their lanterns swung gently, casting moving shadows along the tunnel walls. In their hands, they carried small samples of mithril, its pale glow undimmed by the passage of time. As they emerged into the warmth of the great halls, the steady hum of Khazad Dûm enveloped them once more. The mithril would be shaped into treasures and tools, but its memory, the moment of its discovery, would remain forever etched into the hearts of the two miners. Beneath the weight of the mountain, the light of mithril glimmered faintly in the deep, a reminder of the dwarves' unyielding bond with the earth they called home. The mithril glimmered faintly in the upper halls as word of its discovery spread through Khazad Dûm. Miners spoke of the rare find with pride, and artisans in the forges speculated on the wonders they might create from such a treasure. Yet even as the halls buzzed with quiet excitement, another work of significance was nearing completion, one not born of metal but of stone and art. In a chamber illuminated by the soft glow of enchanted lanterns, Navi, a master craftsman of Khazad Dûm, stood before an immense expanse of smooth rock. This was no ordinary stone. It was the foundation of what would become the Grand West Gate, the doors of Durin, a masterpiece that would mark the boundary between the dwarves' kingdom and the lands beyond. The chamber was quiet, but for the steady rhythm of chisels against stone. The intricate designs that adorned the doors were taking shape, their lines flowing with a grace that belied the solid weight of the material. It was a work of precision, each stroke guided by skill honed over centuries. The carvings depicted symbols of unity, the crown of Durin, the branches of the trees of Eric Guion, and runes of welcome etched with care. Beside Navi, an unlikely figure worked with equal focus. Celebrimber of Eric Guion, an elf of great renown, moved with the same precision, his slender hands weaving delicate inscriptions into the stone. The runes glowed faintly as they were formed, their curves and angles imbued with a subtle power. Though their peoples had not always been allies, in this moment the dwarf and the elf labored as one, their efforts guided by mutual respect and the shared purpose of creating something that would endure. The two craftsmen had spent many days in this chamber, their conversations flowing like the river outside the mountain. They spoke of their peoples, their crafts, and their differing views of the world. Navi marveled at the elves' reverence for nature's fleeting beauty, while Celebrimbor admired the dwarves' unyielding devotion to permanence and precision. These discussions, though often lively, were always steeped in a growing sense of camaraderie. Now, as the work neared completion, the chamber seemed to hold its breath. Navi stepped back to admire the progress, his keen eye noting the smoothness of the lines and the harmony of the design. The doors were immense, their surface an intricate tapestry of Dwarven strength and Elven elegance. They would not only guard the entrance to Khazad Dûm, but stand as a symbol of what could be achieved when differences were set aside in pursuit of a common goal. Above the carvings, the final inscription was being etched: "Speak, friend, and enter." The words, simple yet profound, embodied the spirit of the collaboration. A gesture of trust and welcome, rare in a world often divided. The phrase would stand as both a greeting and a riddle, one that invited those who came with goodwill to pass freely, while warding against those who came with ill intent. The stone beneath their feet seemed to hum faintly, as if responding to the harmony of the work. Navi moved with purpose, his tools a seamless extension of his hands. Beside him, Celebrimbor's touch was light but sure, his elven artistry adding a luminous quality to the runes. As the final chisel stroke was made, the doors stood complete. They were majestic, yet inviting, their polished surfaces catching the light and reflecting it in gentle patterns across the chamber walls. The designs seemed to ripple with life, as though the mountain itself acknowledged the work with quiet approval. Navi stepped back once more, his gaze lingering on the finished piece. The doors of Durin were more than a marvel of craftsmanship. They were a testament to the strength found in friendship, a bridge between two peoples whose paths rarely crossed. In the stillness of the chamber, the dwarf and the elf exchanged a glance of quiet satisfaction. Though their collaboration had ended, the legacy of their work would endure, etched into the stone for generations to come. Beyond the doors, the winds of Erigion whispered softly against the mountain's face, carrying with them the promise of unity. Within the mountain, the great halls of Khazad Dûm stood steadfast, warmed by the glow of friendship that now adorned its threshold. The grand west gate of Khazad Dûm stood completed, a testament to craftsmanship and cooperation. Its smooth stone and glowing runes waiting to greet those who would pass through. Deep within the mountain, however, the life of the dwarves continued unabated. With the labor of the gates behind them, and the recent discovery of Mithril bringing whispers of excitement, it was a time for celebration. The great hall of Khazad Dûm was alive with light and sound. Enormous braziers cast a warm glow across the polished stone walls, their flames dancing and crackling in rhythm with the hum of activity. The long tables, carved from the mountain's finest granite, were set with an abundance of food and drink. a display of the dwarves' deep appreciation for feasting as a form of both sustenance and fellowship. Platters piled high with roasted meats lined the tables, their savory aroma filling the air and mingling with the rich scents of baked breads and spiced stews. Tankards of ale, crafted in the deep cellars of Khazad foamed over their brims, their amber hues catching the light like liquid gold. Bowls of preserved fruits, glazed with honey, glimmered alongside hearty pies whose flaky crusts promised hidden treasures within. The hall itself was a marvel of dwarven ingenuity, its vaulted ceiling supported by immense stone pillars carved in the likeness of ancient kings. Each pillar told a story, its surface etched with scenes of triumph and toil, a silent reminder of the dwarves' enduring legacy. Chandeliers of intricate metalwork hung above, their chains anchored deep into the rock, casting their light across every corner of the vast space. Dwarves filled the hall, their presence transforming the stoic beauty of the space into a place of warmth and joy. Laughter rang out, deep and hearty, echoing against the stone and weaving through the songs that began to rise. The melodies were ancient, passed down through generations, their words honoring the mountains, the forges, and the steadfast kinship that bound the dwarves together. At the head of the central table, Durin's throne sat elevated on a dais, its surface adorned with mithril inlays that shimmered faintly. Though the king's presence was felt even in his absence, the gathering did not require his oversight. For the dwarves, a feast was as much about their shared pride in their work as it was about honoring their leaders. Games and contests began to unfold as the evening wore on, each a demonstration of the dwarves' unique blend of skill and humor. A barrel-rolling race drew cheers and shouts of encouragement, the heavy casks tumbling across the smooth stone floor as competitors strained to guide them with precision. In another corner, a knot of smiths debated over whose newly forged trinket was the finest, their playful rivalry a celebration of their craft. As the feast reached its height, a quiet moment came when one of the elders rose and began to recite a tale. The hall fell silent, save for the crackle of the braziers, as the elder's voice wove a story of Durin the Deathless, of his vision at the Mirrormere, and the founding of Khazad. The tale was familiar to all, yet it was no less cherished for its repetition. Each word carried the weight of tradition, grounding the revelry in the history that united them. As the story concluded, the hall erupted once more into applause and song. Cups were raised, toasts exchanged, and the bonds of kinship reaffirmed in every corner of the space. The warmth of the hall seemed to spread outward, as though even the mountain itself shared in the celebration. When the evening at last began to wane, and the first hints of fatigue settled over the gathered dwarves, the The feast's echoes lingered in the great hall. The laughter, the songs, and the stories, all were woven into the very stone, becoming part of the enduring spirit of Khazad. Outside, the mountain stood steadfast beneath the stars, its halls alive with the light of camaraderie and the unyielding strength of its people. Within, the great hall grew quiet once more, but the memory of the feast remained, a testament to the dwarves' joy in their work, their kinship, and the unbroken legacy of their home. As the great hall of Khazad returned to its tranquil stillness, the warmth of the feast lingered in the hearts of those who had gathered. The dwarves, refreshed by laughter and song, resumed their daily tasks with renewed vigor. Yet deep within the mountain, far below the echoing halls and glowing forges, the quiet of the mines told a different story. The lower levels of Khazad were shrouded in shadow, their tunnels winding endlessly into the earth. Here, the air grew cooler, the stone walls darker, and the faint hum of the mountain seemed to take on a more somber tone. For many dwarves, the depths were a place of both fascination and caution, their mysteries as enticing as they were foreboding. Among the miners and delvers who braved these lower reaches, tales were often shared of the Keeper of the Depths, a figure of legend said to guard the hidden treasures of the mountain. The story was passed from one decade to the next, its details shifting slightly with each retelling. The Keeper was said to be a creature of stone, its form shaped by the earth itself, with eyes that gleamed faintly in the darkness, and a presence that could silence even the most stubborn echoes. Some claimed it was a guardian, placed by Aule to protect the mountain's secrets from those who would exploit them. Others whispered that the Keeper was born of the dwarves' own greed, awakened by those who dug too deeply or too carelessly. On this day, a small group of miners ventured into one of the lesser-used shafts, their lanterns casting flickering shadows across the jagged walls. The team had been tasked with investigating a promising vein of ore that had been identified weeks prior, but left unexplored due to its remote location. The air here was heavy, carrying the faint scent of iron and damp stone, and every step seemed to amplify the silence around them. The eldest among them, a miner with decades of experience in the deeps, led the way. Their movements were deliberate, their pick and chisel tied neatly to their belts, and their keen eyes scanning the walls for any signs of disturbance. Behind them, the younger miners followed closely, their lanterns swaying and their breaths quiet. The deeper they traveled, the more the air seemed to hum, a faint vibration that resonated through the stone. It was a sensation familiar to all miners, yet here it felt different, heavier somehow. The younger miners exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and unease. while the elder continued forward with steady determination. The walls of the tunnel soon gave way to a cavern, its ceiling high above and lost in shadow. Here, the stone seemed untouched, its surfaces smooth and unbroken, as though no pick or chisel had ever reached it. In the center of the cavern stood a peculiar formation, a tall column of stone, its surface marked with faint, intricate patterns that looked almost deliberate. The miners paused, their lanterns casting long, wavering shadows across the cavern. The hum in the air seemed stronger here, more deliberate, as though the mountain itself were holding its breath. The elder stepped forward, their eyes narrowing as they examined the column. To their trained gaze, the markings appeared too precise to be natural, their curves and lines suggesting a craftsmanship that defied explanation. The younger miners hesitated, their instincts urging caution. The tales of the keeper filled their thoughts, the whispered warnings of a presence that guarded the mountain's secrets. Yet there was no sign of movement, no glowing eyes in the shadows, only the steady hum and the weight of the cavern's silence. Carefully, the elder raised their lantern, the light illuminating the column's patterns more clearly. The markings seemed to shimmer faintly, their surfaces catching the light in a way that seemed almost alive. The elder smiled faintly, a mix of awe and respect filling their expression. With a gesture, they signaled for the miners to retreat, their task incomplete, but their spirits unbroken. The cavern and its column would remain untouched for now, its mysteries left to the keeper of the depths or to the mountain itself. As they ascended toward the warmth of the upper halls, the hum of the depths grew fainter, replaced by the steady rhythm of Khazad life. Behind them, the column stood in quiet solitude, a silent sentinel in the shadows, its secrets waiting patiently for another day. The ascent from the lower mines brought the miners back into the bustling heart of Khazad, where light and warmth filled the halls. The quiet hum of the deep was replaced by the familiar cadence of hammers and the distant murmur of voices echoing off the stone. Life in the mountain moved with the steady rhythm of creation, and among the countless tasks that shaped the dwarves' daily lives, one stone carver toiled with a quiet, solitary purpose. In a modest workshop near the western halls, tucked away from the grand forges and communal spaces, the stone carver worked. The room was small but orderly, its shelves lined with tools of various sizes, each polished and well cared for. Patterns and sketches, some completed and others still in progress, were pinned to the walls alongside small fragments of carved stone. The carver, an unassuming figure with hands roughened by decades of labor, bent over their latest project. Unlike the towering statues of kings, or the intricately adorned pillars of the Great Hall. This piece was smaller, humbler, a simple yet elegant depiction of a blooming flower emerging from the stone. It was a rare subject for Khazad Dûm, a place where the strength and permanence of the earth often took precedence over fleeting images of nature. Yet, to the stone carver, it was precisely this contrast that gave the piece its meaning. The inspiration for the work had come during a walk through the upper terraces, where the mountain's face met the open air. There, in a small crevice between the rocks, the stone carver had noticed a solitary wildflower, its delicate petals defying the rugged landscape. The sight had stayed with them, a reminder that even in the unyielding embrace of stone, beauty and life could find a way to flourish. Now, as the carver chipped away at the block of granite, their hands moved with practiced care. Each strike of the chisel was deliberate, guided by a vision that only they could see. Fine dust settled on the workbench and the floor, catching the light from a single lantern that burned steadily nearby. The rhythm of the work was calming, almost meditative, the sounds blending seamlessly with the faint hum of the mountain itself. The piece began to take shape, its lines clean and precise, yet imbued with a softness that seemed to defy the hardness of the stone. The petals curled gently outward, their edges smooth and delicate, while the stem and leaves bore subtle textures that gave them depth. Though the carver's hands bore the marks of countless works before this one, they treated the stone with a reverence that spoke of deep respect for their craft. As the hours passed, the lantern's glow dimmed slightly, and the air in the workshop grew cooler. The carver paused to wipe their brow, their eyes scanning the nearly finished piece. It was not grand, not a work that would draw the admiration of the Great Hall or be remembered in song. But it carried with it a quiet sincerity that made the stone carver smile. When the work was complete, the carver carefully lifted the sculpture and carried it to one of Khazad Dûm's smaller gathering spaces, a modest alcove where dwarves often paused to rest and reflect. The room was simple, its walls unadorned save for a few carved runes of welcome. The carver placed the sculpture in the center of the space, its presence a subtle yet striking addition to the room. For the carver, this gift was not about recognition or acclaim. It was a gesture, a reminder that even in the vastness of Khazad Dûm, where stone was shaped into wonders of unimaginable scale, the smallest creations could hold profound meaning. The flower, born of granite, would stand as a quiet tribute to the enduring spirit of life. A reflection of the beauty found not only in the grand halls and deep mines, but also in the unnoticed corners of the mountain. As the carver returned to their workshop, the alcove grew silent once more, its new addition standing in serene solitude. The halls of Khazad carried on, their echoes alive with the work and voices of the dwarves. While the stone flower waited patiently for those who might pause to see it and find their own inspiration within its simple elegance. The alcove where the stone flower rested became a small but cherished corner of Khazad, its quiet beauty offering a moment of reflection to those who passed by. Yet, as the years turned to centuries, the grand halls of the dwarves grew heavier with the burdens of the deep. The miners delved further into the heart of the mountain, their work driven by the lure of Mithril's unmatched brilliance. But the mountain, for all its gifts, had its limits, and in the depths below, something ancient stirred. On this evening, the halls of Khazad were quiet, a stillness settling over the kingdom that felt unnatural. Fires burned low in the forges, their glow subdued. The rhythmic sounds of hammers and chisels had faded, replaced by hushed voices and the faint echoes of hurried footsteps. The dwarves had begun to sense what lingered below, the shadow that moved unseen, vast and malevolent. In one of the residential halls, a small family gathered. Their home was modest, carved into the rock with care, its walls adorned with simple runes of protection and prosperity. A fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting a golden glow across the stone chamber. Shelves held tools and trinkets, each telling a story of the life they had built within the mountain. The head of the household sat at a sturdy stone table, their hands running over a small, intricately crafted item, a family heirloom passed down through generations. The object, a pendant carved from polished mithril, gleamed faintly in the firelight. It was not grand in size, but its craftsmanship was exquisite, the runes etched into its surface glowing faintly with an otherworldly sheen. To the family, it symbolized their connection to Khazad, a link to the mountain and their ancestors who had first called it home. Nearby, a child played quietly with a wooden toy, its surface worn smooth from years of use. The elder of the household watched with a faint smile, their eyes heavy with both pride and sorrow. They knew that tonight might be the last time the family would sit together in these halls, the place that had sheltered their kin for untold ages. The quiet was interrupted by a faint tremor. It was subtle at first, like the distant roll of thunder, but it grew steadily, the vibrations coursing through the stone walls and floor. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the soft crackle of the fire seemed to shrink beneath the oppressive weight of the noise. The family paused, their gazes meeting in silent understanding. Outside, the passages of Khazad began to fill with movement. Dwarves hurried through the halls, their expressions grim, their steps quick but orderly. Despite the fear that gripped them, there was no panic, only a quiet resolve. They had known for some time that the mountain was no longer a safe haven, and now the moment to leave had come. The family gathered their belongings swiftly but carefully, taking only what was essential. The pendant was tucked into a leather pouch, its faint glow extinguished as it disappeared into the folds of a cloak. The child clutched their toy tightly, the familiar weight offering a small comfort amid the uncertainty. As they stepped out into the corridor, the light of their lantern joined the many others that lined the walls, their soft glow forming a path through the darkened halls. The vast spaces of Khazad, once filled with the sounds of life and creation, now carried only the faint echoes of footsteps and the distant rumble of the mountain's unrest. When the family reached the western exit, the towering doors of Dwarven stood open, their runes dim but still visible in the moonlight that spilled in from outside. The cool night air greeted the dwarves as they emerged, their faces turning briefly to the stars above. The mountains loomed around them, silent witnesses to their departure. Behind them, Khazad remained cloaked in shadow, its halls vast and empty, the light of its forges extinguished. But within its stone walls lingered the memory of all that had been. The songs, the laughter, the craft, and the quiet moments shared by those who had called it home. The final light of Khazad was not the glow of its forges or the brilliance of Mithril, but the spirit of its people carried with them into the night. And so, dear travelers, we bid farewell to the deep halls of Khazad, a kingdom of unmatched splendor and enduring spirit. Within its stone walls, the dwarves carved not only their home, but their history. Each chisel stroke a testament to their resilience, their craftsmanship, and their unyielding bond to the mountain. Through these tales, we have glimpsed their joys and their trials, the hum of their forges, the quiet beauty of their creations, the warmth of their feasts, and the shadow that finally overtook their home. Yet even as the fires of Khazad dimmed, its light did not fade entirely. It lives on in the songs of the dwarves, in the treasures they carried with them, and in the stories that endure through the ages. As you close your eyes tonight, let the echoes of these tales guide you into rest. Imagine the rhythmic sounds of hammers deep within the mountain, the soft glow of mithril veins in the dark, and the quiet strength of a people who built wonders from the heart of the earth. Good night, my dear travelers, and may your dreams be as steadfast as the mountains.